What's going on, guys? What's going on? I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins, and I am fresh off the reparations rally here in Washington, D.C. Today, I was talking to a brilliant brother by the name of John Boyd, and John Boyd brought up a great question that I wanted to ask you all and kind of analyze. And the question is Kyrie Irving a slave? Is he a slave, or is he just some millionaire who, shouldn't expect to have freedom of speech on his job? I'm going to look at some of this in extreme detail. We're going to talk about the fact that I think the Brooklyn Nets have been quietly firing Kyrie. And we're also going to look at the definition of what civil liberties actually represent. So get comfortable, buckle up your seatbelt. We're going to get started on drboycetv.com right now.
Here we are, clan the isms, cataclysm, great. Our people out here struggling, trying to make it in this state. Everybody out here doing it, but we the ones who late. Now family, we the ones who gotta delegate. Get that money in the power, never be fake. Stick to cosign for 3. What did he say? Create jobs, support our own. Educate the same and buy back your home. Got 3 degrees, triple 10. 3 PhDs, now we on the CNN. DBTV, let's talk about negligence. Ignorance is bliss, but we can turn it to intelligence. Believe none of what you hear, half of what you see. Let's break it down here on Dr. Boyce TV. Here we are.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to drboycetv.com, the home for intelligent Black people. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins, and I'm here in Washington, D.C. I just attended Tariq Nasheed's rally for reparations. The hashtag is rally, the number 4 reparations. You got to look it up. I think that it's actually one of the most highly trending hashtags in the world now. If you go to Twitter, I'm looking on Twitter right now, and earlier today when they showed the trending hashtags, I saw rally for reparations on the side. I don't see it right now, but I can definitely tell you that everybody's talking about it. Everybody's tweeting about it. And shout out to Tariq Nasheed and all the other great people there. Professor James Small was there. Marcel Dixon, who's running for office in South Carolina, was there. Jade Arendelle did a great job. Lioness Crowned. Just so many awesome people. Kaba Kabane. I mean, just so many amazing people were there. And I just really was excited to be a part of this. And I felt like it was just an opportunity of a lifetime, because we have a chance to make a difference that's going to last our people for the next several hundred years. In fact, give me a yes in the chat if we are in agreement that Black people deserve reparations. Give me a yes in the chat. Let's try to see if we can get an alignment. Give me a yes. How many of y'all are convinced that we are owed reparations in the trillions for all the slavery we've gone through, all the oppression we've gone through, all the suffering we've gone through? How many believe that we deserve reparations for all the wealth that was stolen? How many of you have been convinced that reparations are necessary? I want you to give me a yes in the chat. And if you're not sure, or if you want to get more support for your argument, Dr. Claude Anderson wrote a book called Black Labor, White Wealth. I'm going to go visit Dr. Anderson tomorrow. I love this man immensely. And Dr. Anderson's book, Black Labor, White Wealth, breaks down the history of how they stole your money, what they did with it, why you should be outraged about it, and why that has literally stunted the growth of the Black community. Now, with that said, also, please shout out your city. Let me know what city you're from. I see Mike Jones. I see Eunice Williams, Sandra Pitts. How are you? My name is Corey. Good to see you. And some of y'all I saw here today. Forgive me if you meet me in person. I don't remember your name from online. There's a lot of names in here, but I love every one of you, and I appreciate you 100%. I'll never take you for granted. So let's hop into this. Let's talk about Kyrie Irving. Now Kyrie has been a topic of conversation for a while, and I've addressed it a couple of times. And the reason I keep addressing it is because I think there's a lot to unpack here in terms of understanding what other people are doing to you. So to Tone from Atlanta, what I want to say to you is that basically what you're seeing here is something that's really interesting. There's a guy named John Boyd who I just love and respect. He's the father of Victory Boyd. Victory Boyd's the best singer ever. I mean, she sang for Jay-Z and he signed her on the spot. That's how talented his daughter and his family is in Infinity Song. And I'm hoping John will come into the chat, into the podcast. I sent him the link. I'd love for him to come in and share his ideas. But he and I were sitting on the phone talking today, and we were talking about a lot of stuff, a lot of issues with Black folks, what it means to be economically independent, what it might mean to challenge hip hop music in terms of the way certain people have controlled hip hop and used it as a weapon of mass destruction for the Black community. I mean, think about this. The same people that are mad at Kyrie Irving for alleged hate speech are the same ones who are literally promoted, the biggest hate speech promoters on earth. They have spent billions of dollars putting out music that has been destructive to Black people, that is hateful toward Black people, that calls Black people the N-word in every other sentence. And it's fascinating to me that they don't even listen when you bring this up. They act like they don't even hear you. This is the craziest thing in the world. And so ultimately, you're in this interesting power struggle right now with people that just see the world a little bit differently from you. So one thing that John Boyd was bringing up that I really thought was interesting was he talked about Kyrie Irving, and he brought up this idea that a couple of things. We talked about slavery, and we were sort of saying like, okay, is Kyrie a slave? Like, what does that mean? So what I thought about was, slavery and what slavery is. Now, if you look up slavery, it says a person who is the legal property of another and is forced to obey them. That's the definition that you look up when you look up slavery. So slavery is a person who is the legal property of another and is forced to obey them. So based on that definition, do you think that Kyrie is being forced to obey other people? Yes or no? Give me a yes or no if you feel like Kyrie is being forced to obey. And as you answer, I'm going to tell you guys, when I think about slavery, I don't think of it as an on-off switch. Either you're a slave or you're free. I don't think there's anybody that's 100% free, and I don't think there's anybody that's 100% slave. Also, I think that the slavery our ancestors went through was very different from the slavery that we experience today. But if you think about being forced to obey, I think that this might fit the definition. I think Kyrie has a lot of conditions that he has to return in order to return to the Nets. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look up the conditions. They literally gave him a big list of things he had to do. They gave him a to-do list, and they said that let's see, I'm looking at Nets Daily. They said he has to meet the media. Hold on, let me see here. Oh, here we go. The Nets. Now pay attention. Now this is for a retweet. This is not based on a statement Kyrie made. This is not based on a film that he made. This is a film that Amazon is promoting. Like so I want to ask y'all this: has anybody heard anything about the NBA or the Brooklyn Nets going after Amazon for being allegedly anti-Semitic? Have you heard anything about Jeff Bezos being forced to apologize for selling this DVD? Remember, without Bezos selling the DVD, that there is no DVD to promote. So Kyrie didn't make the movie. Kyrie didn't say anything about the movie. Kyrie just literally did a retweet. So I want you to really process how deep this is, everybody. That they're literally thinking that because he's a Black man and because they see him as their property, that they can literally punish him for a retweet as if he was the originator of the original idea, or as if he's the person who actually made the movie. That's a very dangerous idea or dangerous concept, because that is guilt by association. That's literally saying that because you just, hit the retweet button and you sort of casually supported somebody that was doing something that you hadn't totally vetted, we're going to hold you accountable as if you did it yourself. That's real heavy. That's real heavy. So the conditions that Kyrie must fulfill in order to get his job back, let's see. They said he has to apologize and condemn the movie. He has to get $500,000 in donations to anti-hate causes. He needs sensitivity training. He needs anti-Semitic training. So they're basically saying you're a dumb Negro, you need to be trained. I want to know how many people in that category, in the other group, that are running record labels that are calling Black people the N-word in every other song. How much training are they being forced to go through? Are they being forced to go through reparations training to understand how Black people had $13 trillion stolen from them over the last 400 years? Are they being forced to go through some sort of training to understand the impact of their music and how this is harming the Black community in horrible ways? Are they going through any training? Are they doing any training to learn how to be like you? What training are they being forced to go through? Just that idea to say you're a grown man, but we need to retrain you. We need to re-educate you. Do you understand how insulting that is? Do you understand how emasculating that is? That is horrible. Now, and I get it. These guys, this is what happens. This is why I step in and put on my finance professor hat. And I tell you all, you have to be really careful about who you get your money from. These guys go and they sign these big contracts with these big, companies. I don't blame them. I mean, these teams are signing the $200 million deals, and I don't blame them for taking that money. But my thought is, if I take your money, the first thing I'm gonna think about is how I can get to the point where I'm not economically dependent on you. What investments can I make to divest away from my dependence of my relationship with you? What moves can I make to protect myself? Think about this. If you're a woman and you're married to a man who gives you a life of luxury, but he beats your ass every Tuesday, you better be saving your money, girl. You better be making some investments. You better be stacking some money in a box in the back so you can have an exit plan out of that relationship. These black men, and I'm gonna bring Mr. Boyd in here in a second. I see he's backstage. These black men are in an abusive relationship. They are living a real life manifestation of what's love got to do with it. And they are getting Ike Turnered every other day by these entities that basically own and control them. They've sold themselves. So there's a difference between being forced into slavery versus what's really happening in general here, which is where we sell ourselves into slavery. And we're happy to sell ourselves into slavery as long as the price is right. So that's a conscious decision you have to make. I'm gonna bring Mr. Boyd in right now so we can finish this conversation. Mr. Boyd, how you doing?
Hey, my brother, I'm doing good.
Good to see you, man. I'm doing great. Yeah, everybody. This is John Boyd, and John is just a great black man. First of all, very smart man, and his family is full of talent. They have this great group called Infinity Song, and I met him also in Baltimore, and his daughter Victory sang at the event and knocked everybody's socks off. And John and I have been friends ever since. So yeah, good to see you again.
Good to see you. Good to see you. Going on 6-7 years now. It's been a while.
Yeah. One of my best friendships, man. A lot of respect for you. So let's dive into the Kyrie thing. You know, I'm glad you came in because I told everybody in the beginning that it was our conversation you and I were having just now that led me to say, oh yeah, this will be something we got to discuss online. And let's start with that word slave. You know, do you feel that Kyrie Irving is a slave? And if so, what are the nuances around a statement like that?
I mean, when we look at what's happening with his voice, of course, we think about a slave. We think about the definition of really not owning yourself. You're somebody else's property. So if you don't have a voice and you don't own your voice, I think that's the essence of self. It's definitely something that we're looking at. I wouldn't necessarily say definitively yet, but it's starting to look, it's starting to look like it's in that category. And it's a pretty sad look, in my opinion.
Yeah. It is interesting when when you say yourself, and your voice. Maybe that's what it is, right? We say, okay, I'm a free black man. I think that when you have, when you don't have those relationships and those peculiar connections, you're as free as you're ever going to be. Like I feel pretty free. Largely at least on a basic functional level, because I don't have those relations. The Brooklyn Nets are not filling my bank account with money every week, right? So there's the downside that I don't have as much money as a Kyrie Irving, but the upside is I can do what I want. I can talk all day about all this stuff, and they're not gonna. They might block me on Facebook or something, which they actually did, by the way. When I put up that title of the Kyrie video, they said I violated community standards by asking the question, is Kyrie Irving a slave? I literally put up that thumbnail, guys. This just happened a few minutes ago, and they literally, right. I put it up on Instagram. They literally said this post violates community standards. So even having the conversation is offensive to them. But I think that it seems to me that as black people, we're trained at birth to sell ourselves into slavery. Right. Like it's sort of like, okay, like if you're broke. Which broke is a type of slave. It feels like a type of slavery in itself to some extent. But if you don't have enough money, and then on top of that, maybe you don't feel validated by the world because nobody told you that you were important just because of who you are. It's like we need these labels, and we need this fancy job and this nice car and all that. Then we start feeling worthy. So then you say, okay, I need to sell myself into servitude so that I can get these things that are going to validate me, whether it's money or fame or power or the big fancy office and things like that. Do you think that that's part of the culture that we need to sort of look at and address as a community?
Yeah. In all fairness to Kyrie, I don't necessarily think there was a meeting of the minds with respect to him speaking or tweeting out or speaking in the public square. I think some of this stuff is really evolving in recent months or years, where they're moving the goalpost and rearranging the terms, because I think he's wise enough to know that if they had point blank said, you're going to sign this, you won't be able to share a tweet with the documentary that you watched. He might have thought twice about that. So in fairness to him, it's hard to judge because, again, the language codes are constantly changing. One day you can say one thing, the next day that's off limits. So I think we just got to see what exactly what were the terms, and we may not have access to that of his deal. But I think in a general sense, like we're walking towards that, not only as Black people, but I think the whole human race, humanity itself is. We're up against this whole transhumanism play, and a lot of people are going to end up being slaves that didn't really think that they were going to be slaves. But I know that we're really concerned about our people, and this is a B1 conversation. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, you know what? And by the way, everybody, I'm speaking with Mr. John Boyd, and we're talking about Kyrie Irving. And the fundamental question we started with is Kyrie Irving a slave? And as we move on, I'd like to ask everybody, if you could, real quick, with intentionality, we really, really could use your support. Could you please hit the thumbs up button? Also, hit that subscribe button. If you have to subscribe, hit the notification bell so you'll be notified when we go live. I can't tell you how hard they work to shadow ban the channel. Make sure you guys don't see it. You guys know that they don't really want you exposed to intelligent ideas. And so I'd like to ask if we can counteract that by consciously hitting that notification bell so you'll be notified when we go live. Also, this podcast is on Spotify and some other platforms. So if you want to listen while you're in your car, just look up the Dr. Boyce Breakdown on Spotify. So let's go into this direction of something else you said, Mr. Boy. I mean, you just in case y'all don't know, this is a brilliant man that just drops knowledge and doesn't even know he's dropping it. It's one of my favorite people to talk to. So you actually brought up something else that I thought was interesting. You speculated on this idea that perhaps the Brooklyn Nets are kind of doing, everybody's heard that term, quiet quitting. Where the corollary to that is quiet firing. Quiet quitting, where you kind of quit your job, but you're still kind of going through the motions, but you really kind of like have checked out. Quiet firing is when your boss has pretty much fired you, where their goal is to create conditions that are so uncomfortable that eventually you're going to walk away on your own terms. You're going to volunteer to walk away so they don't have to actually fire you. Do you think that with these terms of what the requirements, I'm going to read the requirements of what they're asking Kyrie to do in order to get back in their good graces. They've asked this proud Black man, they've said, you must apologize and condemn the movie. You must give $500,000 in donations to anti-hate causes. You must get sensitivity training. You have to get anti-Semitic training. You have to meet with the Anti-Defamation League and Jewish leaders, and you have to meet with Joe Tsai to demonstrate understanding. I think Joe Tsai is that, I don't know if that's the owner of the Nets. I'll Google his name. But so then after you do all that, you have to show up and prove that you learn these things. You have to show adequate remorse. It almost reminds me of, like, you ever see when a brother goes to court for a crime he didn't do, but he was forced into a jail, and then he goes up for probation, and they say, are you going to express remorse for your crime? And the guy's like, I didn't do it. And they say, well, that's not adequate remorse, so you're going back to jail. That's what it almost reminds me of. What are your thoughts on that, Mr. Boyd?
Yeah, I think it's like a forced confession. It definitely doesn't make a lot of sense because you can't really control the heart of an individual. So it's really a public spectacle, almost trying to satisfy social stakeholders, to meet some kind of test. It's a bad precedent, in my opinion. I just think that I agree with you. How is he going to meet those terms and maintain his dignity? I don't see the two. I don't know how we reconcile the two. So the fact that he's a proud man, that he deserves dignity, he deserves space, he deserves respect. I think it's really a great, overwhelmingly. I think it's too heavy-handed for the situation that in my view, right? So definitely it could be creating conditions that he can't really agree to. But who knows? We'll see. We'll have to see what happens.
Well, I agree with you. I think that you use words like pride and things like that, and it's almost like they're basically saying, because you are our employee, you don't have the right to have any pride. That you're not we're going to make sure you understand who the alpha is and who the beta is in this situation, because you're right. A lot of this it reminds me of how they actually created Adolf Hitler, in my view, in Nazi Germany. The way they gave him power was World War I. The Germans were defeated so badly that they just said, we're going to humiliate the hell out of this country. They were slaughtering Germans by the thousands. They were taking all their territory. They ruined their economy. They put reparations on the country that were unpayable, and it created anger. So it wasn't just at the top. There were a lot of people, because remember, a leader can't lead without people supporting him. And again, I don't condone any of the terrible things that happened during that war, of course, but it was like sometimes when you humiliate the hell out of somebody, there might be chickens that come home to roost later. And what I'm seeing is in the Black community, their efforts to kind of express their dominance are really infuriating. I mean, I see furious. I don't know. Give me a yes in the chat if this just pisses you off. I'm picking up a fury in the Black community that I haven't seen in a long time. And so it makes me wonder what this is going to end up looking like, 2, 3, 4 years down the road. What do you think?
Yeah, it's definitely igniting some anger. It's just a fact pattern here, because like when you look at the facts here, it doesn't meet the punishment, in my opinion. So it's just sad, and I think I agree with you when you push people into a corner like this, and you keep poking on them. I just think that's a form of torture in a sense, and who knows what's going to happen, But I think that's a significant point that you're making. We'll have to see what his response is. But I think as we were talking, I think there's a response for the greater community. We should definitely not sleep on this and really think about what our collective response should be, because he's getting a collective response from a community. I think he should not bear this alone. This has implications not just for himself, but just think about all of the other young men and young women that are in the pipeline for joining professional sports. And it's not just basketball, football, baseball, whatever. We have many young leaders that are heading in that same direction. And this has got to be demoralizing for a lot of them in terms of what this implies. We as community stakeholders and leaders, we definitely have to look at this and see, what is going to be the proper response from the community.
Okay, so speaking of response, we're going to get to that. And before I do that, I want to let everybody know that I'm speaking with John Boyd. His family has a very, very talented group and an amazing business. The group is called Infinity Song, and I encourage you all to look it up. We can't just talk about what we don't like. We got to talk about what we do like. and also his daughter Victory Boyd is right up there with the Anita Bakers and the Sade's in terms of just being one of the best singers ever. And what's even scarier is that she has siblings that are just as talented. So look them up. Everybody, please look them up. Also, please hit the thumbs up button, subscribe button, notification bell, everything else. I want to remind everybody, the All Black National Convention, we have the super early bird passes for next year. So for this week only, if you want to get them half off for next year, then go to allblacknationalconvention.com and you can go ahead and lock it in. And we even have a family pass, so you can bring your family. We want you to do that so we can all get together and celebrate ourselves and make progress. So let me ask you this, Mr. Boyd. So you were talking about things in terms of solutions, right? Like it's one thing if we get mad, and, this is who we're upset about or who we're upset with. It's almost like this all reminds me of when I got really mad when I was working at Syracuse University. And they were telling me, they were putting the hammer on me, kind of doing what they're doing to Kyrie, punishing me for certain things. I got really mad. And then one day, the anger kind of stopped. And I realized what was really happening was that God was sort of nudging me in the direction I needed to go in anyway. It was kind of like to say, you're not really supposed to be under anybody's umbrella. You're really supposed to be your own man. Almost like when you get too old to live in your father's house. And you realize you need to have your own house, and then you and your father will get along much better. And that's exactly what my story was. Me and my parents got along much better when I was living down the street than when I was living in the house because I didn't need to be in the house anymore. So do you think that this is the point where the black man he's kind of outgrown the subordinated status that we seek? That maybe it's time to go into our entities of our own and build off that. What do you think?
I totally agree with you. And with freedom becomes responsibility. And I think that box is a little too small. He's apparently outgrowing it. So I think the point that I was making is still true because there are other athletes that are heading in that direction and may have to be at home for a while or be in these people's homes. And if that's the case, we still want them to be treated fairly. And I think that's a community thing that we have to really think about. Also, this whole definition of community guidelines, that just think about that. We're being precluded from doing certain things because it violates community guidelines. But I don't think the definition of that definition of community guidelines includes our community. So in terms of solutions, I think we're going to have to form our own community and have our own community guidelines. And that means we'll have to have our own spaces. And perhaps these people that are running up against these guidelines in other communities are going to be motivated to really help us build our own community and really to define our own terms. But that definitely will come with responsibility. Totally agree.
Yeah, and that is true, right? Like when I decided I wanted to be my own man, I could be my own man and still have my parents paying the bills. I had to take the responsibility that comes with the power and freedom that I felt like I deserved at that time. And so that leads me to, a discussion about a guy that you and I, have some familiarity with, Kanye West and what he's going through. And I think he and Kyrie are kind of going through a similar sort of thing with this anti-this and anti-that. And I remember seeing discussions where Ye was it seemed like he was figuring out that that even though the Adidas and Gap deals were very lucrative, he was bringing so much weight and so much power and so much culture and creativity to the Adidas brand. I mean, Adidas was living off of him. He made 23 times more money than the CEO of Adidas because his shoes were selling so well. So it seemed it got to a point where he said, I just realized I don't think I need you guys anymore anyway. And it's almost like there's a type of maturity that we have to go through. I think as a community, I refer to this as economic maturity. Where you get to the point where you're like, look, you don't have to be Robin to somebody else's Batman. anymore. Eventually, if Robin is stronger than Batman, he needs to kind of change that relationship a little bit. Yeah. So I guess I like your thoughts on that in terms of us. I guess as we move forward, it almost seems like this is kind of a blessing, right? That this is going to actually make us better and stronger long term.
Yeah, this definitely has the potential. When you get to a certain point in life in terms of stature, economically or whatever, actually, the more, in a sense, freedom you lose, because you have to do these deals, these partnerships, these alliances, and so it's hard to judge the deal that Ye did with any entity. I do agree with you that all deals, whatever they are in the beginning, are subject to change, because people change and people grow, and people have they see the world through different lenses. Their world views change, and he's gone through this process of identity, this identity process where he's really growing in his understanding and his knowledge, and so it might not be a good fit. Ultimately, I think that a lot of our people have not fit into some of the deals that have been a part of our history in terms of the business world. I think we really have to forge, and I don't know if we've gotten to that at this point as a collective. We have to forge this new day, this new horizon of what it looks like to have Black interests represented properly at the highest levels. So there are a lot of frontiers, there are a lot of battles that we still have to fight, and I think Kanye's bumped up against that invisible ceiling, and we still got some more battles we have to fight. We may have thought that we fought most of these battles in the past, but I think he has revealed through what he has just exposed that there are yet still major battles ahead of us, and that's the big question right now, in my opinion.
Well, one thing that you brought up when we were talking, I thought was really interesting was, we were talking about just this concept of freedom of speech, and you had some good points about the privatization of the public square and
right.
Civil liberties, and I remember you mentioning, and I hope it's okay. I would never mention anything that was deliberately private, but I liked what you were, you mentioned something that I think it's pretty clear that we once lived in a time where the American Civil Liberties Union would be the people that fought for your right for freedom of speech,
Right.
and now we've kind of gotten in this weird dystopian awkward reality that they're actually fighting against freedom of speech, and I like to look up definitions to get to the root of things to really understand what's what. So I looked up the definition of civil liberty. So here's what I found. Right, it's the state of being subject only to laws established for the good of the community, especially with regard to freedom of action and speech. So what's going on here? Because if your freedom of speech can be taken away because you said something that offends somebody, well, join the club. Everybody, I mean, I get offended. I don't know about y'all. How many of y'all in the chat get offended by things you might see on social media? How many of you get offended by what you hear in the music? How many of y'all get offended by what Hollywood is pumping out on a regular basis? I mean, is that the standard? Like that what you say can't offend anybody? What's going on?
That's the whole purpose of the freedom of speech amendment. It's to protect controversial or antagonizing speech, or quote unquote politically incorrect speech. It's not to protect speech that everybody likes. If that were the case, we wouldn't need a First Amendment. People did not die to upholding or defending the Constitution or people's right to say what everybody else agrees that they should say. This is really challenging the whole constitutional framework of this country right here. Because the way that we're defining freedom of speech, in fact, what I'm hearing from commentators is that we really, you have freedom of speech, but you're going to pay the consequences for it. So it really is not free. It's only free if you're willing to pay for it. And the price tag for freedom of speech keeps going up. It's like inflated, like inflation. Like, it's totally different today than it perhaps was a year ago or 10 years ago. So the goalpost keeps moving. It's very subjective, and it depends on which group is offended. So it's not equally applied across the board. Yeah. So the Constitution is being shredded right before our eyes in terms of equal protection under the law. In terms of abuses of power, in terms of extreme punishment. All kinds of things are happening right before our eyes, and it's pretty sad. But the public square, what is the public square? We talked about the civil rights movement was really largely fought in the public square as people marched in the streets, got permits to do gatherings in public places and all of that. In large part now, the public square has been privatized. So people wage these battles over ideas on Twitter and Facebook and other social media platforms, but these are all privately owned. Having freedom of speech in the public square is one thing, but having freedom of speech on private property is totally different. And I think it's going to be very important for us to really rethink not only our arguments, how precise they are, but the venues of our arguments, so that we can really identify what is the current public square, and how we will be able to plant our arguments there and leverage that, so that we can really get the attention of the general public. But having a conversations on these private platforms is very restricted and very limited. It's only so much that we're going to be able to do from these platforms.
Yeah, I think those are great points you make. And by the way, I want to make sure everybody knows I'm talking to Mr. John Boyd, and we're talking about not just whether or not Kyrie Irving's a slave, but we're talking about a lot of topics. And I hope it's okay. I want this to be a free-ranging conversation. He's a smart man. I think everybody should listen to him. His family's group is called Infinity Song. They're one of the best groups you will ever hear in your life. I encourage everybody to support the things you believe in. Please do that. Also, do us a favor real quick. Could you please hit the thumbs up, share, subscribe button? And and there's one company that is that actually obtained a Dr. Boyce shout out, and that's ringstyleminiaturemobile.com. And that URL is on the screen. And so I hope you'll support the sister's business. Her name's Sonia Samuels, and that's her website. And she has a patent, and it's patent number 8634886. And she wants to attract major technology change, such as Apple, AT&T, etc., for the sale of new upcoming patented technology, the telecommunications project. So go support the sister. Go take a look, and we got to support the smart people in our community. There are lots of intelligent Black people around. Now, speaking of that, Mr. Boyd, of intelligent Black people, one of the things that's interesting is that it seems that in this world, there's so much attention on what the entertainers are doing, so much attention on what the basketball players are doing. It almost seems that like guys like you and I, we don't exist, unless we're in the entertainment. Like you're in the entertainment space and your family's doing really well. But I even believe that there's a bias against you by being, the solid Black man that you are, that got your family on the same page. I imagine that there have been people that have tried to Joe Jackson you, or you know what I mean? Or because you think about it, usually when you have a father that's become the visionary of his family and gets everybody working together to achieve a common goal, that father ends up being vilified. Whether you're talking about Joe Jackson or Serena and Venus's dad, they talk about him like he was crazy. And then what was the other one? One more I was thinking about. Oh, Tiger Woods' dad. So I'd be curious, what do you think about that in terms of just just the resistance that society has to intelligent Black men and women. I really believe that that's where our power base is. I think that some of the celebrities are flimsy. They apologize for anything. They don't know necessarily what's going on. Many of them are spoiled and they've lost touch with what people actually want. In my mind, the people that are going to move the community forward are people like you. You and I, and those of us who are just kind of just trying to do the work and to be intelligent about it. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, in terms of the industry, that's just the way it is, because when you're dealing with assets, and talent is a major asset. These are assets. The question then becomes, who controls the asset? So over the lifetime of a major artist, an artist can generate billions and billions of dollars, and not only generate money, but also is influential in terms of leading people in the culture, and that leadership and that influence really translates into big sales into other products. So there's usually a battle over the control over that asset when the asset becomes valuable in the marketplace. So they don't really want parents to have control, because they feel like they know best, and they're going to get more from the asset, and plus they want the asset to be a servant to their narrative. When you have intelligent parents that are really proactive and that are dominant in for lack of a better term, in the space, then that parent's going to be reviewing contracts. It's going to be negotiating on behalf of the artist in a way that's favorable to the artist. So they can't really capitalize or influence the artist in a way that benefits them. So they look at our talent through the prism of self-interest. Like, we got this great athlete artist in the pipeline emerging. How is this person going to fit into our world of value? And so a lot of times we lose talent, we lose our people after we've really spent all the time, kind of like what Dr. Claude Anderson was saying, black labor, white wealth. We do the labor, we do the development, we train the young people from day one, and then we add all this value to them, and then you have these value seekers that basically say, thank you parent, for raising these children so that they can be an asset to our community and to our value system. And we'll give you a couple of bucks, or we'll let the children give you a couple of bucks from what they make. But you just stand over here and let us do what we do. So where you've seen parents that really rejected that idea and said, no, these are my children. I have invested in their development and added value to them. You're going to have to, it's not like that. And so I have been in a position where I have had to make those decisions. In terms of our history, one of the first things that I insisted on after victory got signed was that she come to the All Black National Convention. So I personally took her there because I wanted to build in her a certain sensitivity and consciousness with respect to the Black community. And the rest of the band sang at the All Black National Convention last year, and we're constantly educating them about their responsibility and about their loyalty that they must maintain for our people and for our community. And it's sad that a lot of parents are not necessarily thinking like this. They're thinking about, okay, my child is going to be rich and I'm gonna get this and get that, and we're gonna all win at this, at the end. But it's not like that. You cannot sell your child, like, you can't. It's not worth it. And then by selling your child, you're also selling out your community, and that starts early. You got to start early on that.
Oh my goodness, I'm just mesmerized by what you said, because I'm hearing I heard words like responsibility. I can't remember. I think it might have been loyalty, or just kind of
Yeah, loyalty.
yeah. And what I'm really getting is that with your kids, it seems that you did something that I believe every father, every mother should do. You're shaping their culture, and which is shaping their value system. You know,
Mhm.
and it's being done in a way that goes beyond the money. It's a reminder that, like, okay, money's nice, but there's some things more important than money, and which is in deep contrast to a scenario where somebody says, look, you do whatever you got to do to get the money. You know, sell what you got to sell, sing what you got to sing, behave how you got to behave. And so I love what you just said, because I think that's a big chunk of our problem. You know, if all you do, let me just say this. I'm gonna say this, everybody listening. Are y'all listening? Give me a yes if you're hearing this. I'm about to say something that I think is going to help you gain some clarity on this. And I'm speaking as a financial guy. Um, if you teach your kids to worship money, you're basically making that child into a white supremacist in America.
That's true.
If you teach them to worship money, you're teaching them to worship the white man. Why? Well, because who has all the money? who has got all the money? So if I go to church and I'm like, Lord, please give me that job opportunity, give me more money, and I don't know anything about how to create my own wealth or my own possibilities, my own opportunities, I'm waiting for Mr. Charlie to come in and bless me with an opportunity. Well, he's kind of unfortunately become my false idol, my God.
Right.
And I think that as Black people, we got to be real careful about that in our relationship with money. And speaking of money, I think about guys like Charles Barkley and what's the other one, Shaq, who were calling Kyrie Irving an idiot and all this other stuff, which was really fascinating to me, because that's not even in your job description. Like, they didn't ask you to do this. You know, it was so plantation. It's like the master's coming with the whip to whip a slave, and you say, no, master, give me the whip. I'm gonna whip him even harder than you, right? Because I want to gain favor with the master. Like you could have stayed silent. You could have said, you know what, he's my brother, but I don't agree with him. But hey, there's a lot of ways you could have handled it, but they went all the way overboard. And that made me think about just how money, we think that wealth and power, because Shaq has a lot of money. You know, he's very, very well. He's probably going to be a billionaire. So a lot of people think that wealth and money makes, sort of frees you, but actually wealth and money can make you a bigger slave, especially if you don't know how to kind of use the word enough to say, look, I've made enough money. It sounds like to me like Kyrie said, look, I've made $200 million. Now I'm fine. If I don't make the next billion, I'm going to be all right. It seems like Ye said, look, I have hundreds of millions of dollars I made. If the Adidas deal goes away, then so be it. Whatever their personal decision is, I can't speculate on that. But it seems to me that we don't understand that there has to be a point where, even if you are signing yourself up for that type of slavery, right? You go and you say, okay, I'll do what you want me to do, boss, as long as you pay me good. But there has to be an exit ramp. There's a point where you got to get out of the game, almost like a drug dealer. You know, all those drug dealers say they're going to get out of the game, then they end up dead or in prison. That's how I feel about us going into these corporate traps. You got to have an exit strategy. What are your thoughts, Mr. Boyd?
Yeah, definitely have an exit strategy, and diversify. So your value is not just fiat currency. It's you value other things that are probably not in the monetary realm, so that you're not completely devastated if you lose that area. And then also just really investing in your ability to redo it. Like if you lose money, you have the ability to make it again. And because you're very talented, and people are going to really want what you're selling, and so that's going to be something very temporary. In terms of what Barkley and Shaq were saying, I was disappointed. I think they could have been a lot more nuanced. I'm not going to take a position on their right to say whatever they, if they perceive that what Kyrie was doing was idiotic, I think that's one thing. But to put that out there in public like that, given the climate, Uh, I think that's pretty unfortunate. Um, but that's another conversation about how athletes judge each other. Maybe that's their job, but it's one thing to judge him on his technicals on the court. It's another thing to get into the space where you're judging his character outside of the court, and you're adding, you're piling on because you don't really have to carry somebody else's water. So it's disappointing, to see that. So I'm optimistic. I think both of these gentlemen are very capable, and that they're big money makers. And if one door closes, they're going to create other doors, and so I think sometimes there's a blessing in disguise. I remember earlier we were talking about sometimes we consider people be our enemies, but really they're used by God to get us from point A to point B. And history, when we look back in history over the long term, some of the people that we thought were our enemies turn out to be our biggest friends, because they helped us get out of a situation that God wanted us to get out of. And we would not have gotten out of that situation had not they manifested the way that they manifested. So I think that the end of the story is going to be much greater, providing these brothers make the right decisions. I think the verdict is still out. The story is yet to be told.
Well, I love it. And I'm gonna lay out my a closing thought and recommendation that everybody can walk away with. And I'm gonna let Mr. Boyd, my guest, have the last final word before we bounce out. But before I do that, if everybody could take a moment, please hit the thumbs up button, hit that subscribe notification bell, and if you could all agree to share this link. We really need you. You are a distribution system. We don't have, we're not Viacom with billions of dollars, but we have $1 trillion worth of intelligence, talent, and commitment from you. So if everybody could give me just a yes in the chat to confirm that you're going to take this link and you're going to share this link on your social media, that would really mean a lot. If you value intelligent conversations on these topics, that's what we want to bring to you. So we just ask you humbly if you could agree. Give me a yes in the chat if you could take this link and just pop it on your Facebook, pop it on your Instagram, wherever it is, right? That would really help. Also, so we can stay connected in case they, try to shut things down, because they like to cancel people. And I guess I've gotten to the stage where I'm cancelable, and I'm seeing what's happening with our friend Ye and everybody else. So you could text the word Boyce to 31996. Text Boyce to 31996. You'll get notifications when we go live. Not every single time, but in a lot of cases. And also the podcast is on Spotify, so we've got backups in case things don't work. So here's what I want to do. I'm going to give everybody an acronym. I love to remember things in acronyms because it helps me keep my many thoughts in line. And I think about this. I think about the term the letters DOD. DOD in the U.S. government would stand for Department of Defense. So the same way you have a Department of Defense for the United States, Black people need to understand the rules of economic self-defense.
Right.
Right. And so I'm going to give you 3 words that you can remember with the acronym DOD that will help you to avoid situations like this. Again, I'm going to put on my finance professor hat and break this down for you guys in a real simple way. I want you to teach this to your kids. The DOD model, Department of Defense. You need economic self-defense because every single day when you're Black, they're constantly declaring economic warfare against you. What they did with Kanye and Ye, that was nothing but economic warfare. They've been doing it for 1,000 years. What they're doing with Kyrie, it's economic warfare. I understand the rules of economic warfare very well. So let me give you a simple set of rules you can apply that you teach your kids so they can avoid these situations. The first D stands for diversify. Mr. Boyd mentioned earlier that when you are making your money, you never make all your money from one source. You put you invest in different things so that if one thing doesn't work out, you got something else over here. The riskiest position you could ever be in as a Black person in America, where they hate you, is to be at some job where that is your only source of income. At that point, you officially sold yourself into slavery, especially if you live in paycheck to paycheck. Don't even act like you got freedom of speech because you won't have it. The O stands for options. Teaching your kids how to create options for themselves is really important. That might mean having additional skills. It might mean you do things like the $5 a day investing program, which you can actually find that you can get that for free at boycewatkins.com, where you give your kids enough resources where if they get to work one day and they decide they don't like what's going on, or their boss pinches your daughter on the butt, or something happens that offends them, they can walk away. They can just say, you know what? I don't need this job. I'm going to get out of here. I got options. I got places to go. A person with options is always much more powerful than a person that has no options. So Black people, we end up folding a lot of times and apologizing and looking stupid and looking broken down and beaten down because they get us in the corner where we have no options. That's the O. The second D stands for divest. Divest means don't get into games that you don't want to play. There are certain people, there are certain places, Mr. Boyd, that I will never take money from. They can offer me $1 trillion and I would say no thank you, because I don't want to play that game. All money ain't good money. So the All Black National Convention, I don't want it to be sponsored by Bank of America, because I don't want them to tell me that I can't, who my friends can be or what we're allowed to say. So unfortunately, that means you have to sacrifice a little. You're going to have to let go of some stuff. Stop buying into these silly, ridiculous pipe dreams they give you as a kid that make you think that you should be willing to take on any opportunity that pays you the most money, because some of those opportunities ain't nothing but traps. You know, seriously. So divest away from any relationships, or avoid relationships that are going to cause you to compromise your values. And then that way you don't have to make these hard decisions. You know, so DOD, diversify, give yourself options, and divest from things that do not benefit you. If you do those three things and you teach that to your kids, put that on the refrigerator, put DOD on the refrigerator, explain what that means, have them watch this video, and I guarantee you, your children and grandchildren will have a much better life than some of the celebrities that we see who are in these tough situations. No disrespect to what Kyrie's going through, or anybody else. I'm not talking about them in particular. I'm talking about all these guys that are on the apology tour. You know, the Nick Cannons and everybody else. They're apologizing because they have nowhere else to go. They don't have any other way to make that level of money. And I want something better for our people. I think that we can do that. So, Mr. Boyd, I've said quite a bit. I've probably talked too much. I apologize for that. I'll get the last word, sir. Thank you for joining me today. By the way, I appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome. I just want to commend you, celebrate you for the positions that you have taken, and not just for convenience, just because this topic is a hot topic. You've been preaching this gospel of the Black empowerment for a long time, and so a lot of people can attribute, where they are, to your words of wisdom. So I just want to tell you I have much respect for you and what you're doing. Looking forward to working together with you, and let's come up with some solutions. What you just said is actually very biblical in terms of watching who you allow to make you rich. Abraham, after he rescued his nephew Lot from the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah in the book of Genesis, they were so impressed with him and pleased that he restored their nations by going to war to get his son, his nephew, out of they had swooped him up, and he was part of the spoils of their victory. And they tried to offer him wealth and all kinds of stuff. He said, no, I don't want nothing unless you say you made me rich. So Abraham denied them the opportunity to claim that they were the source of his wealth. So whoever is the source of your wealth, you really want to think about that, because they can hold that over your head and use that as a control mechanism control.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, please. I'm sorry.
So it's not, I don't want to be too judgmental. These are very difficult decisions, life and death, survival decisions. So people make these decisions, but your advice is very solid. We have to really think about what we can do for ourselves so that we can claim that, we were able to, as a people, to empower ourselves. And ultimately, that's going to be the way that we obtain true freedom. So thank you again for inviting me, and it's an honor always to be a part of the conversation.
Well, the honor's all mine, and I like what you said. I like that story you just shared. To me, a lot of it's common sense. Actually, we've known this our whole lives. It's the same reason why you don't want your teenage daughter taking money from any guy who offers it, because he may come to get a return on his investment. So you teach her to say no. Don't say yes unless you're ready to pay whatever price is expected on the other end. And I don't know if we talk about that enough in terms of that basic cause and effect. So I want to say thank you very much, Mr. John Boyd. They can follow your family at Infinity Song. How do I? It's like the word infinity with a Y at the end or an I? I can't remember.
Yeah, it's a Y. Yeah, either Victory Boyd or Infinity Song. They're all out there.
Okay. Everybody. Yeah, everyone, please. I'm going to put the link on my Instagram also. Everybody, please follow Victory Boyd and Infinity Song. They're 100% B1, and the talent is just through the roof. And also, everybody, I want to say thank you all for checking out this conversation. If you could take this link and share it with others, we would appreciate that. Reminder, you can listen to the podcast on Spotify at the Dr. Boyce Breakdown. Just look that up. And also go to BoyceWatkins.com. We've got some stuff there that can help you and your family on your economic intelligence and financial literacy journey. And thanks to the Black Business School also for helping us to get this done. So we are changing the world, and one family at a time, and can't stop, won't stop. We will not lose, because we are the winning team. We may not be winning the way we want just yet, but I'm telling you, Mr. Boyd, I feel real good about Black people right now, and I feel like that we've got that special sauce. So now I think we're starting to see that. I think the sky's the limit. So thanks again, buddy.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Please have a good night. God bless you, and we will see you all soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Here we are, clan the isms, cataclysm great. Our people out here struggling, trying to make it in this state. Everybody out here doing it, but we the ones who late. Now family, we the ones who gotta delegate. Get that money in the power, never be fake. Stick to cosign for 3. What did he say? Create jobs, support our own. Educate the same and buy back your home. Got 3 degrees, triple 10. 3 PhDs, now we on the CNN. DBTV, let's talk about negligence. Ignorance is bliss, but we can turn it to intelligence. Believe none of what you hear, half of what you see. Let's break it down here on Dr. Boyce TV. Here we are.